there, positive managers. Welcome to Phase 1, Module 3, the top secret performance maximizer. You've now officially started the first part of your Unlock Your Genius blueprint, and after this module, you'll be adding a new expectation. How do you feel? Can you see how achievable it is for you to reach mission accomplished? But before we do that, I want to just touch on the expectations work that you've either done or not done yet, in case you're starting to spin out and maybe asking yourself, can I do all of this justice? What if it doesn't work? I want you to know that the thing most people don't realize about the best work of their life is that it's built on the back of their initial work. Take famous authors. Very few write their best work first. Most get better with each book. Yet it's that initial work where something really important is born, the start of their journey as an author. So don't stall yourself out here with unrealistic expectations for yourself. Just work the program step by step. Each step will build on the last, and you will iterate your way to awesome. Actions create momentum. So even if you're taking action that gives you clarity on what you don't want to do, you're building momentum toward what you do want to do. So in this training, you're going to continue to follow my proven step-by-step method. Now we'll get to today's topic, expecting your employees to problem solve. You can follow along using my Manager Toolkit. The tips you'll learn here can be found inside. When it comes to maximizing performance, it's easy to recognize your best and worst performers. The best performers you reward, and the worst ones you should be processing out of the organization using the steps and tools in Program 2 of the Positively Managing method, Positively Managing Unsuccessful Employees. But it's those in-between employees who pose the biggest challenge for us. These employees are your inconsistent performers, effective at times and ineffective at other times. But they also have the greatest potential to become high performers. Your best approach with your inconsistent performers is to raise the bar and adopt a zero-tolerance policy toward employees who fail to seek out solutions to problems. Adversity shouldn't be the reason a person gives up. On the contrary, it should be a great stimulus. Failure provides useful information that eventually leads to the solution. For example, during the Apollo 13 space mission, a near disaster was transformed into a triumphant victory by an incredible team of people using the philosophy that failure was not an option. If you're not familiar with the story, Ron Howard directed a phenomenal movie version of the event, and I highly recommend watching it. But I digress. My point is, the word failure shouldn't be a negative one. Great achievers throughout history failed many times before they succeeded. Think of the stories surrounding the invention of the light bulb and the 10,000 failures that occurred before success was achieved. You need to add the phrase, "There is no failure, only feedback," to your toolbox. Because when it comes to performance management, mindset, both yours and your employees, is everything. Problem solving is a predominant pattern of behavior that's present in every high achiever, and in most cases, it's unconscious. But that doesn't mean you can't teach this behavior to all your employees and expect them to adopt it. Creative problem solving kicks in when solutions aren't readily available. How the brain processes solutions is changed when a person believes that every problem has a solution. For high performers, being solution-oriented is a part of their thinking pattern. Their brain becomes wired differently. With these employees, failure is simply not on the table. At one time, I was a successful labor mediator, and I diverted a strike that had already been scheduled to start on the Tuesday after Labor Day by the teachers' union. How did I do it? At our first mediation session, which happened to be on the Friday afternoon of Labor Day weekend, that's how sure the parties were that mediation wasn't going to work, I told the parties two things. Failure is not an option for me, and none of us are leaving this building without solving this problem, because with the brains in this room, a solution is already here. And if you walk out the door before I do, I'll go straight over there to those news cameras and tell them you quit on me. Now, I couldn't have really done that, but they didn't know that. The sticking point was over allocation of healthcare costs, something we all know is both an emotional hot button and a financial challenge. The parties and I literally worked around the clock, never leaving the building, and came to an agreement on Sunday evening. And luckily for me, no one had to call my bluff. The next week, the head of the teachers union for the entire state called me and asked that I explain exactly how I'd gotten the parties to an agreement, because they had been certain that there was no resolution possible. I explained that it was because I sincerely believed there's always a solution. And after that, I became one of the most requested mediators in the state. Don't assume that because your employees know how to do a job, that they also possess the necessary mindset to overcome obstacles. Instead of labeling your employees' mindset as good or bad, ask yourself whether it's solution-based. A solution-based mindset is active, with the focus on the goal. The opposite of that is a negatively passive mindset that's evidenced by statements like, I can't, or it can't be done. A negatively passive mindset creates barriers and self-imposed limitations. It blocks knowledge and prevents success. It also squelches ideas and shoots down initiative. Given the same set of circumstances, the solution-based mindset expands to think about possibility and opportunity. In the end, failure only occurs when a person fails to try or gives up. Asking a simple but powerful question will always lead an employee in the right direction of the goal anytime they're stuck. What's the solution? Teach your employees to ask themselves this question. And anytime one of your employees comes to you and states that something just can't be done, first respond by stating that you understand their initial reaction, but then ask them, if you had to move forward anyway, what would you do next? It's also important to understand that there are two types of failure. The first isn't really failure at all. Instead, it's hitting a wall after legitimate effort and heading off in a different direction in search of the solution. And you never want to punish or discourage this type of failure. The second type of failure is the more important one for you as a manager to recognize and address. Giving up when they see an obstacle. These passively negative employees need to learn that failure provides useful information that eventually leads to the solution. That's where you need to focus your time. It's important for you, as the manager, to be able to clearly differentiate between the kind of failure that's a normal part of achievement and failure that's the result of giving up. Judging an outcome alone can be misleading. Instead, you need to make an objective assessment of how much problem-solving effort your employee put into finding a solution. Every time they present you with an obstacle that's keeping them from reaching the goal you expect them to reach, do 3 things. First, request that they share specific details regarding their effort. Those unable to give you specific details gave up too early. In fact, your first red flag is the absence of specific detail in their explanations, because there can't be detail unless there was effort. Second, judge their actions, not their good intentions. Look at what they've actually done, not what they thought about doing or meant to do. Third, be on the lookout for blame. Most non-achievers believe that an obstacle or hardship cheated them and don't see the connection between their own efforts and persistence and overall success. They use blame and excuses, and this behavior must no longer be tolerated in your department or on your team. There's no perfect workplace that's free of obstacles. Anyone can shine when the road is clear, but we all know those employees who blame their lack of success on problems they couldn't control. But have you ever stopped to think about the fact that these employees are blaming their failures on the same obstacles that your high performers overcome every day? It's not the obstacle that determines someone's success or failure. Instead, it's the employee's response to that obstacle that determines the outcome. High achievers don't produce better results because they didn't run up against obstacles. High achievers produced better results because they responded more effectively. There will always be challenges. Ultimately, each employee is only as good as their ability to overcome them. Let's look at a sales force as an example. Even if this isn't your business, we all know that building sales is tough work. And we also know that the best salespeople are valuable commodities. Imagine a team that has a goal of increasing sales by 10% this quarter. If we add to the mix the challenge of having no advertising budget, we all know there'll be employees in our scenario who will throw up their hands and declare the goal unreasonable and impossible to achieve. The reason, the obstacle, no advertising budget. But step back and realize that the employees in our imagined scenario who threw up their hands will have put little or no effort into overcoming this obstacle. Instead, all of their effort goes into explaining their "I can't" position. In this same group, we'll also have those who just go to work and meet the goal. Not reaching the goal never occurred to them. They roll up their sleeves and they get to work seeking out creative ways to achieving the goal despite the obstacle. Ask yourself, which reaction is more effective for your organization? From here on out, in your department or on your team, once a goal has been clearly stated, your employees should be expected to find a way to achieve it. Just because an employee doesn't immediately know how, doesn't mean there isn't a way. Problem solving is now the key to their success. This is where your new zero tolerance policy comes into play. Now, I'm not saying you have to have an actual written policy on paper and approved by HR. I'm talking about a personal managerial policy you adopt and communicate to your direct reports. Any attempt to blame something or someone else must be shut down immediately. Your response from this day forward should be to tell your employees that you no longer accept any explanation that casts blame. Accountability can be the catalyst that causes your negatively passive, low achievers to abandon ineffective behavior and adopt a more constructive, solution-based behavior. The key is to be both prompt and consistent when addressing this new marker for substandard performance. In fact, it's the key to addressing all substandard performance. Otherwise, your position will be quickly interpreted as excellence is optional. The truth is, behavior is a personal choice. This means that effort is a choice. Trying despite failing is a choice. Therefore, after education and other positive steps have failed to bring about the necessary change, negative consequences must take over as a teacher. Employees who persist in refusing to seek out solutions to problems must be managed out of the organization. It is an unfortunate fact, but the only way to purge a destructive attitude from a department is to not accept the behavior from the employees who insist on keeping it. There is nothing personal in that. Such employees are terminating themselves. So now it's time to take out your expectations blueprint for each of the positions you manage. And as the top item on number 1 for successful, add problem solve as discussed. And when you put together your coaching and feedback plans later in the program, you'll be discussing with each of your employees what you learned in this module. You may even want to watch it again with them. So problem solving is now an expectation in your toolbox. Great job! See you next week in Phase 1, Module 4. Help them understand why what they do matters to the organization.